Hello and welcome back to the Watford Way podcast. Today I'm once again joined by Finn Onans up near Birmingham City. Hello Finn, how you doing?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Lots to talk about today, including Watford's recent game against Cardiff City, Valérien Ismaël's new contract, Ben Manga and his recruitment team being sacked, and the game coming up against Sheffield Wednesday as well. So lots to discuss, Finn. Firstly, the game against Cardiff City, did you watch? And if you didn't watch, what were your thoughts and feelings reading the reactions from Watford fans on social media?
I did watch. Unfortunately, I spent £10 of my money on that.
Yes.
But on the face of it, it's a decent result. We've been absolutely torrid on the road for the last 2 years, really. I saw a stat on Twitter. It was since the day we were relegated from the Premier League at Palace, we have won 3 away games. And that was more than 2 years ago now, which is ridiculous. So
and I don't think we've won a game away from home since the 2nd of January this year either as well.
Yeah, it was Norwich. Yeah. But yeah, the fact we've not gotten even a point away for so long, it feels like a point against a good Cardiff side isn't too bad. And the performance, to be honest, with a more settled midfield, I thought Jake Livermore and Kayembe were brilliant. I thought it was a decent performance and a good point against a good Cardiff side. But reading from the reactions on Twitter, you'd think someone had been shot. I get we're a Premier League side for the best part of the last 7 years or something. But looking at the squad we've got, looking at our budget, looking at our trajectory, the fact that we're lower in the table should be expected, and people have got to let go of that Premier League mindset that we're going to be challenging for promotion this season, because we're not. It's not going to happen. I'd be surprised if we finish top half. So with all that in mind, I think Cardiff's a good result.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's something that, we can build on. Obviously, a point on the road is always good, regardless of the team you support, really. As you said, it's been a long time since we've actually won a game away from home in its entirety. However, I do think a point's good. What was your thoughts on that new midfield thing? Obviously, Imran Louza come out of the team, Kayembe and Livermore come into that midfield. And I thought Kayembe and Jake Livermore actually specifically impressed me quite a lot, because he's had a lot of criticism this season, Jake Livermore. Probably not warranted, really, because he's not had a lot of game time. But he did impress, actually, Finn. He probably could have scored a goal at one point in the game as well. How was he for you?
Yeah, Jake Livermore, throughout his career, he's never going to be the star man of the team. He's never going to be the one who grabs the headlines. But for a team in our position, he does the job. And I think he does the job so much better than anyone else we have as an option. Or at least he did against Cardiff. Like you say, he's not played much this season, so there's not a lot to go off. But he seemed settled. He seemed like he knew what he was doing, which with his amount of experience, I'm not surprised about. Even 10 minutes in, I felt much more comfortable with him in midfield than Siralta. Just quickly touch on him as well. I thought he was really good against Cardiff as well in centre-back. I think because he's been playing in midfield so long, we forgot he is actually a pretty good centre-back. But yeah, anyway, back to the midfield. Livermore and Kayembe both were fairly solid. I'm not going to say they were brilliant, because they weren't. They didn't do anything amazing. But they were solid, kept it rigid, kept it organised. And like you say, both of them have received a lot of criticism since they've joined Watford. And both of them, again, I don't think it's largely their fault. Livermore specifically, he gets a lot of backlash just for joining the club in the first place, which I think is ridiculous. You can't judge a player before he's kicked the ball. And I know when we signed him, I probably said something like, "Oh, it's such a rubbish signing." Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he was very good against Cardiff. Same with Kayembe. I don't really know what else to say apart from they were very good.
Yeah, quickly touching on the move Francisco Sierralta back into his original position, I suppose, in that centre-back role. Do you think it was warranted that Ryan Porteous dropped out of the team? Because I did feel like, for me personally anyway, his performances and Wesley Hoots' performances actually had dropped off in recent weeks. So do you think that was a warranted decision by Valérien Ismaël? Imran Louza also dropped out of the midfield in place of Kayembe and Livermore as well. Are them changes warranted in your opinion?
I think Ryan Porteous on his day is a fantastic centre back, and I really like him. He's my kind of player. He puts his body on the line and stuff like that.
Well, Finn, you're a centre back yourself, mate. Talk to me.
Yeah. I'm players like that. I remember a couple of years ago when we were in the Championship and we got promoted, when under Zisco. Um, I had a thing on this channel about how much I love Tom Cleverley.
Yeah.
And I've always liked players. I do not care how good you are at football. I just want you to run around a bit and show you care. And I think Ryan Porteous is the epitome of that. There was a couple of games ago he absolutely launched himself head first in front of a shot about 6 yards out and blocked it.
Yeah, I remember that.
I
Yeah.
often remember who it was against, but I just thought, you are the man. But after the last couple of games, I think either Hoot or Porteous had to be dropped because the performances combined were just nowhere near what we saw last season or the start of this season. And I think given that Hoot's the left-sided centre-back with his left foot, I think it had to be Porteous. And I'm not going to say I disagree with it, but I'm not going to say I agree with it. I think Porteous and Serralta could probably switch throughout the season and no one would notice, apart from his long ponytail, Serralta. Because I think they're both very similar players. I think Porteous edges it on terms of being the better player. But against Cardiff, yeah, I think it was warranted that Porteous was dropped. As for Imran Loser, he's been rubbish this season, hasn't he?
Yeah, bar the first game against QPR where he was absolutely sensational. Yeah, he has been very poor for him.
Yeah, and I expect so much of him because I know how good of a player he is. And again, I don't think it's largely his fault that he's been rubbish. I think if you take a midfield of Kayembe, Livermore, and Loser, I think it gives Loser a role to do whatever he wants. And I think that's where he thrives. Get him on the ball, finding the passes, finding the strikers, wingers, whatever, and leave Kayembe and Livermore to clear up. And I think he'd thrive in that. But again, like I said with Porteous, the last few games he's been a passenger. He's been rubbish.
Would you say he's been dropping too deep, perhaps? Because that's probably been my one complaint with Loser. I want him really high up the pitch, influencing Watford's attacking moves. And I just think for me, sometimes he comes really, really deep to try and get the ball. But then because he's come so deep, he can't really do a lot with it creatively, apart from laying it off to other people. That's been my one concern really with Loser.
Do you know, I'm going to disagree with you there, but I think when last season, Loser's best position was in the six, I think, or season before that when he joined, I think he's best in the six. But you're right in saying that in this current system, he's dropping too far deep. Because I remember I watched an interview that Loser did at the start of the season, and he said himself he wants Valérien Ismaël wants him higher up the pitch, being the one that everything goes through. So yeah, I do and I don't agree. I think his best position, in my opinion, is as a six. I think he's best there. But with the current midfield options, that's not viable. So in the role that he's in at the moment, yes, I do think he's dropping too far deep. Given the freedom I mentioned with Livermore and Kayembe, I think he could do really well though.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. Moving on to our next point of discussion in the podcast today. It's kind of old news now, but of course we're going to talk about it. And it's the fact that Valérien Ismaël was awarded a new contract, which I think everyone, I'd say, was relatively pleased about. I don't think everyone was... I don't know what the right word is. I think we were pleased about it, but it just felt a bit odd, didn't it, Finn, that he was awarded a new contract so early on. A new 3-year contract for Valérien Ismaël. Cristiano Giaretta was the one who announced it on the Watford website. What was your first thought when you saw the club statement come up around Valérien Ismaël?
I did want to jump off a bridge a little bit because I thought he was sacked. If he'd have been sacked, I'd have... Well, I don't know what I'd have done, but I'd have been very angry. But when I saw it was a new contract, I thought, I was pleased. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something to get you off your seat. Yeah, Valérien Ismaël's got a new contract. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I was pleased. He's a good manager, and I'm glad we're finally backing someone. Whether we're doing it in a transfer market, I can't really say because personally, I don't think we did in the summer. But now that Ben Manga's left, which I'm sure we'll touch on later in the podcast, now that he's left, hopefully, fingers crossed, Ismaël will have more control over recruitment, meaning we'll get the players he wants. And I think when that starts to happen, if that starts to happen, that's when we could begin to turn the ship around. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
upward trajectory for the first time in about 4 years. I think that's when that will happen, if that happens. But yeah, I was happy that he's been awarded a new contract. Although I saw something on Twitter the other day, which it was an interesting point rather than like a negative or a positive one. It was, why has Gino decided that Ishmael's the one he's going to back? Why why not Javi 4 years ago? Why not
Yeah.
Zisco? Why not Chris Wilder? Why not Rob Edwards? Why not any
Marco
of
Silva. We can name them for everything, can't we?
yeah, why
Yeah.
why is it Valérien Ismaël that's getting the new contract, getting control over recruitment, getting backed relentlessly by the board? I don't it's a talking point rather than a positive or a negative.
Well, let's talk about it, because I think the reason, at least in my mind, why he would have done that is because Gino Pozzo, for me right now, is a man under pressure, right? You know, pretty much the whole fan base are against him. We'll touch on that just at the end of the podcast. But yeah, everyone's rolled up against Gino Pozzo at the moment. The whole Watford hierarchy, everyone pretty much is on the same wavelength of, we want new ownership at the club. And I think that was their way of saying to us and to the players that actually, calm down a little bit. We're not going to change the manager. We want some stability. You know, if the players do put in poor performances, they know the manager isn't going to change every couple of months. I think in my mind, that's the thing behind it anyway. I don't know if you think any differently, but I do agree in your saying that it's odd that, you know, we've been through 11, 12 managers in the last few years. And Valérien Ismaël is the one. And I think me and you've been both like that. I think he's a really cool guy. You know, he addresses the media and the fans really well.
Very handsome fellow
But
as
yeah,
well.
it's an interesting discussion point, as you say.
Yeah. Yeah, he's yeah, I don't really know what else there is to say about it. I'm glad that we're backing someone. I just find it weird that it's taken them 11 managers to see that actually the Watford fans aren't very happy. I think it's interesting that you said that Gino Pozzo is a man under pressure, because I've been looking through social media and on the internet and stuff at Udinese fans as well to see what they think of Gino. They all hate him. So he really is a man under pressure. And I don't disagree saying that I want new ownership, but it's a dangerous game wishing for new ownership, because there's always the possibility that we get another Bassini or someone like that that's going to plunge the club even further down. I've gone from being Pozzo out to a bit on the fence. Do you know what I mean? Because yes, I need him to change, and we need him, if he's not going to change, to get rid of the club. But it's the sort of people that could buy the club that scare me more than Gino, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, we might as well touch on it now, because this all kind of links into Gino Pozzo as well. And that's Ben Manga. So the news has come out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I can't quite remember. But Ben Manga and his entire recruitment team have effectively been sacked from Watford. I believe they all signed a 5-year contract at the club when they joined, which means we are going to be paying them a very hefty compensation fee. I was actually messaging Luons on Twitter via direct message, and he said the compensation fee we're going to be paying out for them far exceeds the amount of money we spent in this summer transfer window, which I think for me is crazy in itself, that the amount of compensation we're paying Ben Manga, Helen Acosta, and the rest of them is going to exceed the money we paid for Rivich and Tom Ince, and then the other transfers he brought in. So that's frustrating for me from one angle. And another angle, Finn, you know, can Gino Pozzo change? He's not sacked Valérien Ismaël, but instead he's sacked the man he brought in last December. He's not even been in the job a year. He had a good reputation at Frankfurt. You know, one of the world's best technical directors in football. That's how people were speaking of him. And Gino Pozzo has got rid of him. Can you explain to me Gino's reasoning behind that, perhaps?
I cannot explain Gino's reasoning, and I don't think anyone can explain Gino's reasoning behind a lot of things. But I was reading through the club statements that we've put out recently about Ben Manga, Valérien Ismaël, all that sort of stuff. And the story goes, it was something like Ben Manga was appointed, Ben Manga then appointed Valérien Ismaël, and then when Ben Manga was sacked after Ismaël got a new contract, it was Ismaël wanted Manga out.
Right, okay.
It doesn't make sense, to be honest.
No, because what you're suggesting there is Ben Manga was the man in control, and then when Ismaël got his new contract, you're essentially saying he's now the man with full control around everything. And you're saying it was Ismaël's decision to essentially get rid of Ben Manga. Is that what you're insinuating?
I'm not saying it's his decision. I'm saying that's what the PR's made it sound like.
Yeah.
And obviously, no one ever knows what's going on behind closed doors because Gino and Scott are, I'm going to hesitate to call them liars, but
you can if you want, Finn.
They bend the truth. We'll say that.
Yes.
They've never been honest with us as fans. So who knows what really went down? But I said in a tweet earlier today that to put a positive spin on Ben Manga leaving, to play devil's advocate, if Ben Manga's really left because Ismaël wanted more control, that's a positive in my eyes, because that means Ismaël now gets to control which players come in, which players leave. He'll be in charge of the squad more. He'll see which players he needs, which positions he needs them in, and whether they fit his style. And I think that can only be a positive. Giving the manager control of recruitment is what I believe every football club should do, whether it's directly, like apparently Ismaël's got now, direct control, or the manager creates a list of the sort of players with the qualities that he needs and gives it to a technical director, and the technical director finds someone like that. I don't know. But I always think that should be how football clubs work. So now that has possibly happened with Watford, I think it's a positive thing, personally. I don't think we should have sacked Ben Manga, but now that we have and there's no going back, I can see a positive coming from it.
To play devil's advocate very quickly, do you think Ben Manga left on his own accord, perhaps, just because he wasn't given the budget to bring the players in he wanted? You have to remember, at Frankfurt, he was working for a club who eventually qualified for Europe. They were obviously working with a lot more finances than Watford are at the moment. Do you think that was an issue in the summer, perhaps? Obviously, we sold João Pedro and Ismail Assar for quite big money, but Gino Pozzo, for whatever reason, didn't want to reinvest that into the playing squad this summer. Was Ben Manga perhaps limited and decided to leave because he couldn't influence the squad in the way he wanted to?
I think it's without doubt that Ben Manga was limited, but it's just to what extent he was limited. I don't think Rajovic was a manga signing. I don't think who else to be Tom Ince. I don't think was a manga signing.
Jake Livermore, for example, was most definitely a Valérien Ismaël signing because he'd worked with him previously, right? Yeah.
So it sort of depends. If he did walk, and I'm not surprised if he did because his reputation was getting battered. If he did walk, I think it would more than likely be because he was being undermined rather than a limited budget.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, we're a mid-table championship side now, if that. We're not going to have a massive budget. And I think, what did we spend this? Something like 1 million, 1,000.
Yeah, it was like 1.5 million, if that, probably a little bit lower. So nothing at all in the world of football, really.
No, but I can understand from Ben Manga's perspective that he could think that he could get better players than Rajovic and Ince and Livermore. And if that's the reason he's left, then fair play to him, because I would also be very angry if I was being brought in to be in charge of transfers and then didn't get any control. I would not blame him for walking. But you say you've spoken to Lou Orns, who's obviously a very reputable source. And he's saying we're paying compensation. So if he's walked, then we wouldn't be paying compensation. So who knows, James? Who knows?
I know Finn's waiting on the McDonald's delivery, so we'll get through the last 2 points very quickly. Finn, to let everyone know your McDonald's order very quickly as well.
I've had a bacon and chicken burger. I've had chicken nuggets, and I've had fries.
Superb stuff. 2 more questions for you, Finn. We've kind of discussed this already, but are you Pozzo in or Pozzo out? You kind of said your Pozzo change. For me personally, I am Pozzo out, but with the right owner in place. I think the people on Twitter and other social media platforms calling for Elton John to come in and save the day are a little bit deluded. I don't think that's quite going to happen. I think Elton John's very happy and very comfortable in his life at the moment. So I don't think he'd necessarily be wanting to get back involved with Watford. But yeah, Finn, can you kind of agree with me if the right owner comes in and makes an offer? Because I think Watford are in a great position in terms of location, just outside of London. Our stadium's really nice. You've got lovely facilities. Previous history in the Premier League has been quite recent as well. So are you more leaning towards Pozzo out than Pozzo in, or are you still a little bit stuck in the middle and you don't know which way to sway?
I wouldn't say I'm Pozzo out, but I am hoping that a suitable buyer is sold the club, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean. Like, I'm not actively going, "Oh, Pozzo out," but if someone who knows football and knows what they're doing offered to buy Watford, I'd want Gino to accept it.
Okay.
Um, I'm 100% definitely not Gino in, but I'm not quite Gino out just yet.
Okay.
When we go into what's it called? Oh my god, I can't remember what it's called.
What are you talking about?
When you run
What's
out of
the
money.
word he's trying to find?
When you run out of money.
Administration.
That's the one.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
we want to administration, then I'll be Watford out.
Yeah, but we don't want it to get to that point, Finn. We don't want it to get to that point.
Yeah, no, I know. No, I'm not quite Gino out, but I'm very muchly not Gino in.
Okay,
If
okay, that's
if the
good to
right
hear.
guy comes in, I'm Gino out.
Okay. Watford's next game after the international break is against Sheffield Wednesday, formerly managed by former Watford manager Xisco Munoz. He has been sacked. And just before this podcast, actually, they appointed a new manager. Finn, are you concerned about a new manager bounce, or is it absolutely 3 points on the board for you? Sheffield Wednesday sit bottom of the championship at this current moment in time. Surely it's got to be 3 points at Vicarage Road, right?
I think it's a tougher game than people think. They'll see Sheffield United at the bottom of the table and think, "Oh, they're rubbish, they are." And I think the players will probably do that as well. But they've got a new manager and they have got some good players, such as Barry Bannon. I don't think of any more, but they have got some good players. With a decent manager, and don't get me wrong, I love Xisco, but we just got promoted off of vibes. There was no managerial push or anything.
Yeah.
He's not a good manager, Xisco. I do love him. I love the bloke. He's such a nice guy, but he's a rubbish manager.
Yes.
But now they've got I don't know who is their new manager. Do you know?
His name is. I know who. Basically, I don't really know who this guy is. He was appointed literally five minutes before the podcast. Keep talking, Finn. I'll find out. Give me one moment.
Yeah.
I think his name is Robert Dahl or something like that. Either way, I had never heard of the bloke. To be totally honest with you, let me just go on Twitter here. It is Danny Rahal. Danny Roll.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him, mate.
No, but again, he might be the next Pep. So I think
he might be the next Klopp, the next Mourinho.
But he also might be the next Steve Bruce. So
yes,
who knows?
Yes. Either way, Finn, the football saying goes: new manager bounce. They're going to be rejuvenated. I think Xisco, we can see he had zero tactical nous whatsoever. Really poor. He works off good vibes only and really talented players. He had none of that at Sheffield Wednesday. So yeah, was you sad to see Xisco go, Finn, or was it expected for you, really?
I really, really wanted him to be in charge of Sheffield Wednesday at Vicarage Road.
Yeah.
It would have been nice. But again, not too bothered. Would have been nice, but it probably would have benefited us as well, because the mood around Sheffield Wednesday was awful before he was sacked. Everyone hated him.
Yeah.
But now they've got rid of him. Maybe they'll be rejuvenated. Maybe they'll be more motivated to win. Who knows? But yeah, it is quite sad to see him get sacked. I really wanted him to do well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Score predictions for the game. I'm going to go. I know you say, Finn, it might be harder than we expect, but I think for me, even with Watford and the state we're in at the moment and the players we've got, I still think we've got to be beating Sheffield Wednesday. I'm going to go 2-1 to the Hornets. I'm going to go with loser and Vacuum Bio to score in the game. What about you?
I will go 1-1, Vacuum Bio to score.
Bam, the Crow scoring for Finn. Just before we go, Finn, where can everyone find you on social media?
Well, I haven't been posting much recently, to be honest, because I have no motivation to, because we're crap. But if I eventually do start posting, it's Watford FC Hub on Instagram and F Onans on Twitter.
So that's where you can find Finn on socials. Thank you so much for watching today, or listening if you're watching, or if you're listening on podcast platforms. Finn, I hope you enjoy your McDonald's very much. Very jealous. And yeah, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye bye.